Okay, picture this. It's late 1978, end of December. There's a cargo plane just doing its usual night flight down the coast of New Zealand's South Island near Kaikoura.
Right, stunning area.
Yeah.
But yeah, not a routine flight, as it turned out.
Not at all. This became the Kaikoura Lights incident. And based on the sources you've given us, I mean, this is one of the big ones. Hugely documented, still really controversial.
It really is. And what's great for this deep dive is the sheer amount of material we have to work with from your sources. It's not just, one person's story.
Exactly. We've got official reports, government stuff, we have pilot accounts, air traffic controllers, credible professionals.
Journalists who were there, academic takes, even some historical context on how New Zealand handled these phenomena back then.
So our plan today is to really dive into all that. We'll trace the events as they happened based on these sources, look hard at the evidence, and there's a lot.
Yeah, eyewitness accounts, radar from the plane and the ground, professional film footage, audio recordings. Quite the mix.
We'll lay out the official explanations that were given, but also, crucially, the pushback from the people who were actually there, according to the sources, and just try to get a handle on why this thing is still so fascinating decades later.
Sounds like a plan. Where do we start? The first encounter.
Let's do it. December 21st, 1978. After 2 a.m., according to the sources, an Argosy freighter, basically an air truck, flying newspapers from Wellington down to Christchurch.
Standard run. Off the Kaikōura coast.
And the crew, they start seeing things, strange lights following them.
Yeah, and the descriptions are interesting. The sources say they varied in size. Some supposedly huge, like house-sized, others smaller but flashing really brilliantly.
One description I saw mentioned pear-shaped, reddish, then turning white. And the intensity, someone compared it to a house fire.
Wow. Here's the key thing, right? This wasn't just, I saw a weird light.
No way. The sources are clear. These things were on the plane's own radar.
And simultaneously tracked by ground radar at Wellington Airport.
2 separate radar systems, picking up the same phenomena the pilots were seeing. That's significant.
It really is. And we have quotes. The pilot, his description was something like a bright red glowing light out to our 10 o'clock position. Hard to judge the distance, but definitely airborne.
And 10 o'clock for anyone listening just means slightly off to their left front.
Right. And then you have the air traffic controller in Wellington, John Cordy. He's on the recording saying, very strong on the radar now. It's as strong as you are, meaning the plane.
He apparently joked at first, right? Something about Father Christmas.
Yeah, the sources quote him saying he saw little targets down off Blenheim and joked about Santa. But he also said this target then moved toward the Argosy, turned with it, and tracked with it for a good 20 to 30 miles.
Which is, what, over 60 kilometers?
Yeah, and the pilot later reported clocking them on his radar at around 140 knots.
So actual aircraft speed, not just stationary lights.
Exactly. So, the Santa jokes probably stopped pretty quickly as it kept pace with them for so long it got serious.
Okay, so that first incident is already pretty wild. Multiple witnesses, visual confirmation, 2 independent radar tracks showing movement. But it didn't stop there, did it?
No, this is where it gets even more documented. Because of all the buzz, about 10 days later, December 30th, they arranged another flight. Same route.
This time, they brought backup.
They did. An Australian TV crew from Channel Zero. Reporter Quentin Fogarty, cameraman David Crockett, sound recordist and Gare Crockett. Same pilots too, Bill Startup and Bob Gard. They went specifically hoping to see something. Oh yeah.
Oh.
As they got near the same area, Wellington radar calls them up, tells them there's an object about a mile behind them. Follow them.
Mile behind? That's close.
Very. And you can hear Fogarty on the tape, his reaction. He reports seeing a whole formation of unidentified flying objects, and he actually says it's really getting a bit frightening here.
I bet. It wasn't just a blip then.
No, and they saw more on the return trip. An extremely bright object, much brighter than planets or stars. And the cameraman, David Crockett, he filmed one.
He actually got footage.
Yes. And his description of what he filmed, according to the sources, was something like a brightly lit bottom and a transparent sort of sphere on top. Well, like a flying saucer.
Wow. So this second flight, the sources really emphasize the evidence stack here.
Totally. You've got professional color film, multiple credible eyewitnesses, 5 people just on the flight deck. Ground radar tracking from both Wellington and Christchurch ATC this time.
Plus the plane's own radar again.
Right. Pilot Bill Startup confirms seeing them on his radar again, doing about 140 knots.
And the mood on the plane must have been tense.
Sources say increasingly so. Apparently there was talk about the Valentish disappearance, which had happened just a few months before in Australia.
Oh, right. The pilot who vanished after reporting strange lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would certainly ramp up the anxiety.
Definitely. And there were other weird details reported. Some crew members felt a kind of static electricity or magnetism on the plane's skin after landing.
Really? Physical sensations.
Yeah, and even a feeling of heat inside the cabin during turns near the objects. Plus, the sources mentioned the toll it took afterwards. Nervous exhaustions, sleep problems, stress. David Crockett apparently even went through a relationship breakdown over it.
Man. So, okay. All this evidence, the film, the radar, the witnesses, the media attention, the government had to investigate, right?
They did. The RNZAF, the Royal New Zealand Air Force, and other agencies got involved. The Prime Minister, Robert Muldoon, apparently wanted answers from the Defense Force.
Did they send anyone up?
Yeah, they sent an RNZAF Orion patrol plane to the area to look around.
And what did they find? What was the initial official take?
Well, the sources say the DSIR, which is the main government science body then, sent a report to the UN pretty quickly, January 79. They called them UFOs until identified.
So, acknowledging they were unidentified.
Yes, but they immediately added that the idea of them being extraterrestrial was extremely remote.
Yeah.
Very cautious.
How did they handle the film evidence?
That's interesting. They apparently managed to debunk one piece of film attributed to Crockett, showing it could just be reflections off the window using a torch.
Ah, okay, so mundane explanation for that bit.
Possibly. But the main TV1 footage, they found that more interesting. They noted aberrations that made it hard to analyze, even tried computer enhancement. So that wasn't so easily dismissed, it seems.
The final official word from the Air Force report in '79.
The summary concluded it was all down to natural but unusual atmospheric phenomena.
Natural phenomena, like what specifically?
The sources say they proposed things like lights from Japanese squid boats way out over the horizon, maybe looking weird off Banks Peninsula. Or Venus, unusually bright, maybe distorted by the atmosphere.
And the radar hits. Multiple independent radars.
Faulty equipment, or anomalous propagation, basically. Radar seeing things that weren't really there due to weird atmospheric conditions. Squawks and echoes.
And later on, when files were declassified in 2010...
Yeah, lots of NZ UFO files came out, including Kaikōura. The official line then was still cautious. The military said they just collect reports, don't validate them. And the minister suggested most were probably natural.
But didn't some other documents, like from the CIA, view it differently?
That's what some sources indicate, yeah. That declassified CIA documents actually highlighted the Kaikōura case because of the quality and quantity of the evidence, the radar, the film, the witnesses. They apparently saw it as unique.
Which leads us straight into the challenges to that official natural phenomena explanation. The witnesses weren't buying it, were they?
Not really, no. The sources are full of their counter-arguments. John Cordy, the Wellington radar operator, he was adamant.
What did he say?
Quotes like, "They weren't refractions or atmospherics. They were solid objects giving a radar return. And the crucial bit, they parallel tracked the plane for 40 miles. Solid objects, intelligent tracking that doesn't sound like faulty gear or swamp gas."
And Captain Startup, the pilot, he had issues with the explanations too, right?
Definitely. He famously asked something like, "They haven't explained why I can see Jupiter, Venus, and the harbor lights doing 140 knots on my radar."
Good point. Planets don't clock 140 knots on airborne radar.
Exactly. His point was that what he saw on radar behaved like an aircraft,
Yeah.
not like a planet or distant boat lights or atmospheric clutter.
And the cameraman Crockett?
He apparently did his own tests later, filmed Venus, and said it looked nothing like what he filmed that night, just a tiny dot, not the structured object he described.
So direct experimentation challenging the Venus theory.
Seems so. And another pilot quoted, Captain Vern Powell, he basically scoffed at the squid boat idea, questioning how boats could appear at 13,000 feet, where the plane was.
Yeah, that seems unlikely. The skepticism wasn't just them, though.
No, the sources mentioned media skepticism too, even editorial cartoons making fun of the official explanations at the time.
And there was an American physicist involved.
Maccabee.
Bruce Maccabee, yeah, an optical physicist. The sources say he analyzed the film independently. He reportedly dismissed theories about meteors, ships, birds. What did he think it showed?
Well, his analysis, according to the sources, suggested one object was potentially huge, maybe as big as a two-story building and miles away. Again, something that doesn't fit neatly into those natural phenomena boxes.
It helps to put this whole thing in a bit of context, too. New Zealand had seen UFOs before, right?
Oh, yeah. The sources mentioned reports going way back, like airship mysteries in 1909. The Defense Force officially started tracking reports in 1952, partly Cold War jitters, you know. There was another famous case in 1959, the Eileen Moreland sighting.
So Kaikōura wasn't completely out of the blue, but it was different.
Very different, mostly because of the level of technical evidence gathered. Interestingly, this was all happening around the same time Grenada was pushing the UN to study UFOs.
How did New Zealand react to that?
Sources say they weren't keen. They thought it wasn't really appropriate for the UN.
And the impact wasn't just official reports. It affected people personally, like that journalist you mentioned.
Ross Coulthard, yeah, an award-winning journalist. He cited the Kaikoura case, mentioned in the sources as saying his work on UFOs became the most confronting and challenging story of his career, partly because of cases like this.
It really underscores why Kaikōura stands out. As those declassified docs apparently noted, it's the sheer convergence of evidence that makes it unique.
Multiple credible witnesses, multiple radar systems, audio recordings, professional film, all pointing to something unexplained happening over multiple nights.
And despite the official findings, the sources suggest the people involved, the witnesses, they never really wavered in their conviction about what they experienced.
No, seems like they stuck to their guns. Which leaves us, even now, looking back at the material you provided, with some big unanswered questions.
Absolutely. How do you square all that multimodal evidence? The visual, the radar from air and ground, the film with simple explanations like Venus or squid boats or radar glitches.
Especially the reported 140 knot speed on the plane's radar. How does a natural phenomenon or a glitch track a plane consistently at aircraft speed?
And the correlation. People seeing things visually just as multiple radars are painting targets in the same spot. If it was just bad radar, why the visual link?
Exactly. And what about those other sensory details? The feeling of electricity, the heat, the profound psychological impact reported afterwards. Those aren't usually associated with seeing Venus.
Right. So while the official reports landed on natural phenomena and the DSIR considered ET extremely remote, that initial assessment, UFOs until identified, still hangs there, doesn't it?
It does, based purely on the source material provided, the detailed evidence, the witness testimony, the challenges. It really does feel like a genuinely unexplained case.
The Kaikoura Lights. It remains this fascinating puzzle because you have all these credible pieces, witnesses, radar, film converging on something that just didn't fit the neat explanations offered later.
A real clash between documented experience and conventional explanations.
So maybe the thought to leave everyone with, based on this deep dive into the sources, is this. When you encounter evidence like this, multiple sources, credible observers, technical data, all pointing towards something truly strange, how do you balance that? How do you hold both the need for rigorous conventional explanations and the possibility that sometimes, maybe, we encounter things that genuinely remain unidentified?
Yeah, what does it mean when reality, as documented, seems to push right up against the boundaries of what we think we know? Maybe it even speaks to that deep-seated human curiosity about whether we're really alone.